It is noon, and I thought about like getting a little dressed up, maybe, maybe make it look all nice, get some good lighting, and then I remembered that we're all locked in. So, no. I'm going to sit in a kid's chair and talk about music theory instead, because that sounds fun to me. So, before we get started, I cannot promise there will not be chaos. This is a little bit like a Russian roulette with 4 kids, 6 cats, and 2 dogs. We will see whether the cameras stay up till the end of the broadcast. I'm going to keep it short. The other camera that I'm using to record right now has a 20-minute time limit, so therefore I have a 20-minute time limit. This is basic music theory, and one of my good buddies who is a brilliant musician asked, what does that mean, right? I think it was more to prompt me because he probably knew that the first week, right? So here's what I mean by basic. It is my job to take big things and make them little and tiny and accessible, right? So music theory is one of those things that goes across everything, right? It doesn't matter what instrument you play, you're going to stumble across it. If you are into music at all, it doesn't hurt to know this kind of stuff. However, it is a lot like taking a drink from a fire hose if presented incorrectly. We can go as far in any direction as we want to. So my job is to take, as I said, the big things and make them bite-sized, right? So there are some things that everybody needs to know. And it is difficult to find the layout of the information because the example I was giving lessons is when you cannot tie your shoes, you can't remember, or you can't figure out how to do it, right? It's impossible. You make the bunny ears, what are you talking about? And the loops, and I can't do it. Once you can tie your shoes, you can't remember why you couldn't, though. So it's difficult to put ourselves back in a place where we didn't know much and to take the baby steps out again. So there are some things that I cannot do or fix for anybody. Everybody, if you're into music, everybody, here, I'm gonna get rid of these, they're ridiculous, needs to know this. I'm going to try and make them real big so they show up. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay? Everybody needs to know that. Simply because those are the letters that we use in music. If you don't know that, this isn't the place for that. Right? It goes even more basic than we can possibly imagine. This is a by rote thing. There's no other way to get good at knowing the letters of music other than to memorize them, and you don't even have to go far, right? You just do your ABCs and stop a very small part of the way through. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you're done. It is true that there are other things we can do. We can put a sharp. Sorry, that is a terrible sharp. It should look more like a hashtag, and it does not. It looks like death. Sorry. Sharp means it went up a little bit. Flat means it went down a little bit. Guess what? We're not using those yet. Here's why. In music, we have 2 basic areas. There's notes and beats. Okay? These need to stay separate. Okay? They're 2 radically different concepts, and if you try and combine them too quickly, for instance, I typically, for guitar anyway, do not start out with sight reading. In fact, I don't do sight reading for quite a while, for the simple fact that you can focus on these things individually and get a lot farther, a lot faster, in my opinion. In the long run, if you're going to get good at music, period, it doesn't hurt to know how to read the language. However, the long run can take you a really long time to get to, and most people quit before that. So the concept here is we're trying to find basic music theory, right? The simplest, most basic elements that we can use. So we are not going to deal with beats yet, and we shouldn't. We are going to deal with notes. What are the notes? They're right there, okay? So every sound that you have ever heard, almost without fail, if you are into classic rock, folk, funk, punk, metal, almost all of them use what's called a diatonic scale and then notes in between. The notes in between is referred to as chromatic, and again, not something that we're going to deal with just yet because we need to get good at A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that's it. That's it. That's all. Done. Okay? So there are two concepts that we're going to go over today. It's scales, right? Now there are a lot of scales, thousands of them maybe. There are Japanese scales and pentatonic scales and harmonic minor and melodic minor and the modes of them. And if you don't know what any of those are, good. You're in the right spot, right? Simple. Keep it simple. So we are going to do what's referred to as diatonic scales for today. Diatonic, we have 12 potential notes. If we were to play on piano, it would be white key, black key, white key, black key, white key, white key, black key, white key, black key, or whatever pattern it is, right? Depends on when you start. When we do that, we skip some. We use 7. We use 7. We don't use the other 5. 5 get left out all the time. But they don't just randomly get left out. It goes in a pattern. Now, the letters part doesn't apply nicely to that, unfortunately. So, guitar players, you've got an advantage when it comes to scales. Bass, strings, anything that is what's referred to as a chromatic instrument. Basically, a fret to the next fret to the next fret. You don't need to know what the letter names are. If you just follow a certain pattern, it will give you the thing every time. I will cover that in just a second. What I want to look at first is not single notes, but chords. And in order to build a chord, we do this. Play a note, skip a note. Play a note, skip a note, play a note. That is our most basic. Now, we can use sharps, we can use flats, but I will tell you this. If you don't get really good at play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note, and just knowing that those letters exist first, don't worry about whether it's a sharp or a flat. We've got bigger problems. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on just this for a second. Let's get rid of this. Let's unkill these, since I just stabbed right through them. Okay. So we're going to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Do we have to? We have to have all 7 of the letters, but the short answer is no, we don't. We could have started with B. It could have been B, C, D, E, F, G, A. What happened? This thing moved to this thing, right? God, looks like some kind of weird teepee. Sorry, art was not my major. We could do C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So what happens after we get to B? C again. We just start over. What happens after we get to A if we started with B? The answer is B. We start over. What happens if we go from A? It's an A, right? So knowing that it's not so much a line as a circle, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G is part of the rote part. You have to memorize certain things and nobody can coach you past that, right? You do it. You just sit down and you work on it until this makes sense. I'm bringing this up because what we now need to do is play a letter, skip a letter, play a letter, skip a letter, play a letter, and this is going to give us the basis behind all chords for music. It's the basis behind it. Can we do more? Yes. Pretty much follows the same pattern of play a letter, skip a letter, play a letter, skip a letter, play a letter, skip a letter, play a letter. So what if I want to do more of them, right? Let's get rid of all of this for a second. And do one more example. Now, we're going to start wide, we're going to narrow, probably widen back out, maybe narrow, we'll see. But if I did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then started with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and did play a letter, skip a letter, and just kept going, I would end up with A, skip B, play C, D, skipped, right? So skip B, skip D, skip F, skip A, We just had A, right? It does not get played the second time through. We have 7 notes. That's an odd number. So the next time we go through this, if we just keep playing a letter, skip a letter, play a letter, skip a letter, we end up getting all of the notes that we just skipped. A, C, E, G, B, D, we just crossed that out over here, right? B and D, F. Okay, so everything that we avoided the first time, we now played the second time through. Can we do that? Watch my head. Yes, we can. We can do that. That's how it works. Notes together sound like a cat throwing up while falling down a flight of steps. Okay, notes real close together. In fact, I'm gonna swing both of these, or should I grab a guitar? No, we'll swing them. Ready? Wee. Okay, piano. Also piano, because I've got 2 cameras going. Notes together. Terrible. Also terrible. Terrible. It's good if you're trying to frighten small children. That's all. The interval is called a second. Doesn't matter if it's a major second or a minor second. In fact, that doesn't matter at all right now because we're still not there yet. It sounds terrible. But when we spread them out, we said A, so we'll do A, right? A, C, E, G. Sounds pretty. That's cool. If I keep going, all the notes that I just skipped get played. Now, I would probably end up changing that note a little bit, but that's why we are where we are right now. The thing I just said is we need simpler, not harder. What we ended up doing is that we played every note that exists in our scale. In this case, I'm using only the white keys. It doesn't matter, okay? That's not a thing to focus on yet. What the point is if we use one of every letter, and we just played all of one of every letter, that we used all of what our scale is. It doesn't matter whether it's sharps, flats, or anything else. Spread out, they tend to sound good together. There's a little bit of space between them, and the way that they vibrate together works. We can make more interesting sounds with it. Put together, again, throw up, right? So, here is the practice part that we need. Hi, Ann. Hi, Dan. Hi, Mindy. Sorry, I don't see real good, so from back there I can't tell a thing. And let's see how much time we have left, because we're going to crank through this. Oh, yeah, we're plenty. Good. Okay, let's make sure this is lined up. It is. Good. Okay. So, play a letter, skip a letter, 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 play a letter, skip a letter. That is how we make chords. Okay? Chords is a group of notes at a time. You just saw that on the piano, right? Together. In order to make them sound good together, this is our thing. So how do we memorize this thing by rote? I just said that some things that nobody can do for you, here's one of them, right? Most people in music class have seen this thing, right? This is a treble clef. This is a bass clef. And this is middle C. The reason it's middle C, it is directly between this one. If you go up one line from here or down one line from here, you're there. Do we need to know this in order to memorize what I'm talking about? Not really. The reason I'm drawing it, though, is almost everybody has heard good boy does fine. We'll say does fine. We could also say deserves fudge. Mine in elementary school was Ernie Goes Bananas drawing flies. I don't care what you use. I don't. Every good boy does. Oh, that's terrible. Does fine. Okay? This is a mnemonic. Okay? We've used it historically to memorize the lines. This also tells us the chords. Look, look. Every good boy does exactly what we need to do. If we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now keep in mind what happens if we start over, right? A, B, C, D, E. If we do every skip this thing. Good, skip this thing. Boy. That's how we make a chord. Okay? But we could also say, good boy does. Be terrible English, but we could do it, right? Good boy does. So if we just memorize this, every good boy does fine, or deserves fudge, or drives, I don't know, a Fiat. I would hope not, but he could. This will tell us how to spell out the chords, okay? So this is what I mean by taking like a big thing, right? We could try and figure out these really complex formulas for what is this chord, what. If you can't rattle off EGB, you're not there yet, man. There's no amount of extra studying on the more complex things that's gonna make this better. What you're gonna do is just overwhelm yourself. Don't overwhelm yourself. Keep it simple. Okay, so for this, we have every good boy does fine for the spaces in between. Now again, do you need to know lines and spaces to do this? No, you don't. You don't. But you can still memorize these, right? Even if you don't know what it is you're memorizing, just memorize it because it's going to teach you how to make chords. Okay, so spaces, F, A, C, and E. So F, A, C is a chord. A, C, E is not only a chord, it's the one that we just did at the piano a minute ago. Okay, bass clef, not as many people know this, also has a saying. Most of the time, music education kind of focuses on this one. But it is great. I don't know why I'm writing this down, it's not like you can read it. Big dogs fight animals. Great big dogs fight animals. So what's a G chord? Well, it is great big dogs. Great big dogs, you're done. GBD. Well, what about a B chord? Big dogs fight. So, back to the piano. If we're gonna make a good sounding B chord, that's not it. Okay? Big dogs fight gives us what's referred to as a diminished chord. So what does diminished mean? Who cares? It doesn't matter yet. It doesn't matter yet until you can rattle these off. Don't worry about it. But B, D, F gives us another thing that is very good for scaring small children and nothing else. If we want to fix it, we either need to change this one note or maybe even this one note as well. I will discuss that in a second. A little bit, not a lot. That's not the goal for today.